Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us, Sir Mark Ogden, senior writer for ESPN, and the Daily Mail's football editor, Ian Ladyman. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Rev Devils on the back page of The Sun. The Mirror back page has the simple headline, "No Fear." Again, it's Ruben Amorim pictured with the Manchester United shirt on his first week, had his first interview. Express back page. Again, the lead is Amorim, Manchester United's new head coach, and headline, "Brave New World." Hopefully it works out better than the book. Guardian back page, Ultimate Test, the sports supplement this. That is the Rugby Union match, England against South Africa. Amorim as well features there, and the rugby dominates the back page of the Mail. Let's get brutal. Jamie George threatening to match the physicality. The Times has Emma Raducanu and many happy returns. Win for Raducanu. And the Telegraph for sports supplement, Rebel League targets Dupont, the French star. That's the Rugby Union story once again. And in the cricket, there is a story on the back page of the Eye. Archer withdraws from IPL auction to concentrate on Ashes preparation. England's paceman Jofra Archer. World beaters is Lee Carsley's assessment of England. And have no fear, Amorim is here. That is, again, the Manchester United story on the back page of The Star. OK, let us start with the Mirror. Mark, I'll come to hear you with this. Nice summary of some of the bullet points of Ruben Amorim's first interview with the club's channel. "No fear, Amorim, my team will play with courage and belief. We want the league title. It's been a long time. I will defend players against everybody." That top point, first and foremost, off the back of the fear comment, Mark. How difficult will it be to instil courage and belief?
Well, I think that process has probably already been started under Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think United played with more confidence and more belief in the last 3 or 4 games under Van Nistelrooy than they had done under Erik ten Hag. So I think that's helped in a way. Obviously, Van Nistelrooy's gone there. But, Man United have had 10, 11 years of underperforming massively since Felix Ferguson left. So the first job that Amorim's got is to change that and to make them competitive again. I think he's got as good a chance as any. I think United have got a coach now who's on the way up, who's young and ambitious and has got something to prove. I think all the previous coaches have had, maybe not that successful kind of that young energy, I guess, that Amorim brings. But it's going to be hard because we know that United are, down in mid-table right now. They're not that far off the top 4, but still they've been very inconsistent this season. But I just think he needs to bring some stability, some consistency. Although it's the first time I've ever seen a manager unveiled in the dark, so I hope that's not an omen. But I think United have finally got somebody that a lot of other clubs wanted, and I think he can be the start of good things again. But we'll have to wait and see. Ipswich away is a tough game. Kieran McKenna knows United well. He was linked with a job last season. So it's a tough start, but I do think Amorim's got everything it needs to be successful, but maybe he's not got the players just yet.
I just wonder, Ian, if he has a little bit of the ego and swagger that perhaps will upset other fans, but perhaps excite Manchester United fans. Back page of The Sun, the quote they've referenced is United are the engine of the Premier League, hence the headline, Rev Devils. What do you make of that? Is it much needed, is it, Ian? A bit of a bravado from a Manchester United boss?
Yeah, it won't do him any harm. Manchester United supporters have been crying out for a manager who they can relate to, who they can buy into, who excites them and inspires them. Now, most managers will do that with the football. Amorim will have to do that with the football. But PR, what managers say, especially before a ball has been kicked, it is important. Words do matter at this stage. They'll only matter until the action starts at Ipswich. But United supporters want a manager that they can believe in. I'm interested in reading some of his comments. He was talking about restoring principles and identity and character to the team. And those are 3 things that United sadly didn't have under Erik ten Hag. We didn't know how they were supposed to play. They didn't show enough character, and we didn't know really who they were. We didn't know who he was. We feel a little bit as though we know a little bit about Amorim already. He's walked in the door and he's made a big decision straight off the bat on his first day by getting rid of Ruud van Nistelrooy. What was the point of waiting to make that decision? He didn't wait. He did it straight away. But there was one thing also that he said today that made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. When he talked about how he wanted the team to play, he wanted them to press. It's something that all managers say these days. It's a buzzword in the Premier League. It's a buzzword in European football. Have United got the players to play that way? I'm not sure. Have they got players with the engine to to play that way. The last Manchester United manager who really tried to do that and who arrived talking in those terms was Ralph Rangnick, and his pressing football at Old Trafford lasted about a week and a half. So that'll be interesting to see if Amorim can impose the football that he likes to play on the Premier League with these players.
Indeed, Rangnick went from being quite upbeat and positive, didn't he, to be very critical of the players. Amorim saying he'll defend players against everybody, Mark. Let's get the Express back page to add to the mix. Their headline, again, Brave New World. Mark, what was your impressions of Ruben Amorim then? I suppose, is it a quiet week for him to get his feet under the desk? He talked about identity, didn't he? Is it how difficult is it going to be to instill that straight away, which is what he says he intends to do?
Well, one thing he said, I think it was really interesting. He said he's done the United Museum tour today. Went around the museum and looked at, United's great history, the trophies. He talked about Munich, and he said he wants the players to do that as well. He wants the players to look at the museum, and that might sound like a bit of a cheap soundbite, but do you know something? I think it does matter at big clubs that the players actually know what the heritage that they're playing for, and I think to instill that kind of unity and togetherness, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to take the players around and say, look, this is the club you play for. These are the players that have played in the past. These are all iconic names of the English game, the European game. You've got to live up to these standards. You've got to inspire them that way, because I think a lot of the players who played for the club recently and maybe still do haven't had that strength of character, I don't think, to play for Man United. I think he has to instill that somewhere, and I think he does bring a personality and a charisma that will rub off on the players. They didn't get that with Erik ten Hag, and I think it's been a while since they had a manager that they could look at and think and be inspired by. I suppose the closest would have been Jose Mourinho, but by the time he'd arrived at United, he'd probably been burnt out a little bit. He wasn't the guy that we saw at Chelsea 20 years ago. So I think Amorim has got that. He's got that ability to motivate the players. But yeah, that idea about taking the players around the museum just shows that he wants them to tap into the history, because he has got a bit of swagger and a bit of charisma. And in tradition, that's what United have had. That is what the club's about. It's about, a bit of cockiness, about being the best and thinking the best. And they've not been the best or anywhere close to the best for 10 years. So if he can change that mentality and make United a bit more arrogant again, it might actually help them. That at the moment, they're just the flailing around. I think he's got that personality to inject that can get the best out of the players and make them competitive again.
It's an interesting observation and recommendation from Amorim, isn't it, Ian? It's picked up on not only by Mark, but also by James Ducker in The Telegraph in a feature piece here. Amorim players must go on stadium tour. United coach wants squad to be inspired by club's history. Important to see the trophies and tragedy, head coach adds. Ian, is this something you think will make a difference for United if he can really connect them with the history?
Yeah, it's a clever thing for him to say, but I tell you what interests me about this is that he shouldn't have to tell them. They should have done it already, and it always surprises me how many players in the modern game do play with blindfolds on or blinkers on in terms of the history of the clubs that they play for. It's not specific to Manchester United, and it's also not specific to foreign players, by the way. I remember speaking to one homegrown player who I won't name at a big club in the Premier League and asking him whether he'd looked at great moments from his team's past, and he admitted that he hadn't gone further back than about 10 years. And given that all these things are out there on YouTube, all the great clips, all the glory days of Manchester United, it's all there on YouTube. You don't even have to go into a museum to look at Manchester United winning the treble. You don't even need to go into a museum to look at, sadly, footage of the Munich air disaster. It's all out there, and the fact is that the incoming managers or current managers shouldn't have to tell their players to do that. They should be doing it already.
Absolutely, yeah. The instant access, isn't there, to the legends like Charlton, Best and Law as well, if you want to look at that even further back with Duncan Edwards and company. Let's go to talk England and a smiling face of Lee Carsley on the back page of the Star, below a smiling face of Ruben Amorim with the headline, World Beaters. Carsley tells Tuchel England's got talent. Mark, as we approach the crescendo at the final note of the Lee Carsley era, what are your takeaways of this interim spell?
Well, I mean, it's, less than a month ago since England lost at home to Greece, and we weren't talking about world beaters then. So I think we have to kind of, have a little bit more caution. But, they played really well in Athens. You have to say they played well. He picked the right team. He was bold in dropping Harry Kane, and he did drop him. It wasn't resting. He dropped him for Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins scored. And England looked a lot more lively with Watkins up front, a bit more pace, a bit more movement. So they've got more variety, and I think England have got some great young players. We know that. Cole Palmer will grace any team in the world. You've got, I think Nani Madueke played really well last night. But a lot of other teams have got great young players as well, and we've said this about England over the years. You know, we've had plenty of golden generations and great batches of players, but they never seem to deliver. So yes, England have got world class talent, but have they got that world class mentality at the key stage of tournaments? And we haven't seen that before. We haven't seen it yet. Well, not since 1966, and none of us can remember that. So Thomas Tuchel's job is to instill that mentality, and I think he's got that. He's a Champions League winner. He's a superstar coach. He's a top coach. So maybe that elite coach with this elite group of players can actually win something. But let's wait and see. These young players are unproven. But Lee Carsley has won stuff with them in the past. He took them to the 21 Euros last year. So maybe he believes in it, and he believes that they can deliver successful on the international stage. But I still think we have to look around and see that Spain are a great side. France produce great players as well. Germany will bounce back at some point. I'm sure Brazil, Argentina have something to say. So let's wait and see.
Indeed. Well, Ian, you were in Athens, so brilliant to get you on the show tonight. What were your takeaways from the game, and perhaps what do you suspect Thomas Tuchel's main takeaways will be in terms of players he might want to rely on?
Well, I hope Thomas Tuchel was watching, because he wasn't there. And I'm still astonished that he wasn't there and that he's not going to be at Wembley on Sunday. But I've rattled on about that before, so I won't go back to that. I think Lee Carsley had a very good week, and I'm very pleased for Lee Carsley because he's applied himself to this task, this difficult task, honestly, and with energy and with enthusiasm and with some courage. As Mark hinted at there, hasn't always worked. Didn't work against Greece at Wembley, but it worked last night. England deserved to win. They probably didn't deserve to win 3-0. Jordan Pickford made a fabulous save when the score was at 1-0 with about 20 minutes to go. If that had gone in, well, all bets would have been off, because that stadium was lively, I'll tell you. But he saved it, and England went on to score 2 more goals. They won the game. So Carsley's had a good week. Difficult week for him. Players withdrawing, all the fuss about Tuchel, etc. Wasn't a great atmosphere on that trip at all. And he's brought the players through that brilliantly. The point he was making, I was standing with him when he gave that quote about young players coming through. The point he's making is that Germany and Spain have seen a generation of players go from the 18s to the 21s through to senior triumphs, and he doesn't see why England can't do the same. He was a manager of the 21s when they won the Euros, of course. I think there'll be a mixture. Thomas Tuchel will go back, I'm sure, to last summer's Euro squad. It'll be Foden, and it'll be Palmer, and it'll be Bellingham, and it'll be Rice, and it'll be Saka. We know that. But what the Carsley spell has shown us very quickly is that there is a wealth of talent coming through underneath that Thomas Tuchel will be able to pick from and drop players into squads and drop players into games when needed. And the likes of Muriaki, the likes of Anthony Gordon, Curtis Jones, and others. And I think that is really, really important going forward.
Yeah, England certainly looked more fluent, didn't it, with out-and-out wingers out wide rather than the squad of 10s, which we've seen in the past, all on the pitch at once. Let's talk on a sort of sombre note off the field. Great night for England on it, but back page of The Sun, Tom Barclay reporting fans, quote, treated like animals. Furious England fans insist they were treated like animals by Greek cops in Athens. Some of the 3,500 travelling supporters claim they were attacked, tear-gassed and pepper-sprayed by riot police as they queued to enter the Olympic Stadium. Ian, what have you heard? How concerning are these reports, and how important the governing bodies address them?
Yeah, it was pretty bad, actually. I was made aware of it just about an hour after the game, when we were standing not far from the England team bus waiting for Lee Carsley and the players to come out and talk to us. And somebody I know close to the squad mentioned to me that something had happened and it hadn't been good. Old school chaos was the phrase that was used to me, and not using old school in a good way. Old school chaos. A police force just too eager to get physical, too eager to have a confrontation. And I was told that fans were tear-gassed on the way in. And when I asked why, my contact just said to me, because they didn't like the sight of a crowd, essentially. And I also know a couple of England fans who I messaged after the game who told me they'd left. They'd left after half an hour. They'd had enough of it. They didn't like the atmosphere. And they thought, a half an hour tube journey back into town and a couple of beers to watch the second half on the TV was a better alternative to what they were experiencing in the stadium. And in 2024, in a significant UEFA sanctioned competition, that should not be happening.
No, it sounds a pretty depressing tale, doesn't it? It does say here in The Sun that the FA and UEFA and the Football Supporters Association have all launched investigations. Let's hope they get to the bottom of it. Ian, Mark, thank you very much for now. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers as we head into Saturday, including this in the Telegraph on the big boxing match, how the Netflix circus threatens old school sports. Welcome back. You are watching Backpages tonight, and it's welcome back to Mark Ogden, senior writer for ESPN, and the Daily Mail's football editor Ian Ladyman. Let's go to the Telegraph. Jeremy Wilson, chief sports reporter in Texas, on the big alleged boxing match this weekend. It is Mike Tyson, of course, against YouTuber Jake Paul, 58-year-old Tyson. And this, the headline for Jeremy, chief sports reporter's piece, how the Netflix circus threatens old school sports. The broadcasting landscape is being transformed as huge audiences turn to contrived events such as Tyson v. Paul. Mark, I suppose, as a journalist who's covered those traditional old school sports, are you worried that the quest for eyeballs is going to remove maybe the quest for quality and history?
I think with this one, this kind of event, and it's not the first, celebrity versus old school world champion that we've seen. It's just the danger of it. It's there's a massive age gap for a start. I think Jake Paul's late 20s, Mike Tyson's 58, but Mike Tyson is still the guy that we remember as the ferocious world champion in the 1980s, and it's getting back on for 40 years. But I still would not want to face Mike Tyson at 58. But at his age, is he at risk from Jake Paul? Is Jake Paul at risk from Mike Tyson? We know that boxing carries risk anyway, but this seems to carry a lot more risk. And it is a bit of a circus. I know why it's happening, because, you've got the young generation are obsessed with YouTube stars, and, the older generation like ourselves are still, obsessed with Mike Tyson. In many ways, he was, a phenomenon during the 80s. But it just seems to be just any way to get, like I say, get eyeballs, get clicks, get money through the door now. And it's just a little bit, I don't know what to make of it, really, whether to watch it or not, or whether to be interested or not. But I probably will be interested because it's Mike Tyson. But it's just a strange phenomenon, really. It's not something that we ever thought we'd see in 2024. Mike Tyson boxing a guy who does stuff on YouTube, basically.
Well, better set your alarm early, get your coffee on for that one, Mark. Ian, what's your take on it as well? Ludicrous hyperbole is one of the observations here by Jeremy Wilson. Is this a passing fad? Will people realise that they lack substance, these events, or do you think they're here to stay and are, in a way, bigger than some of the sports which are competed by young athletes at the top of their game?
You know what? It feels a little bit gruesome, but it also feels incredibly difficult to ignore. And I will be watching. I will not be staying up to watch it, but I will watch it in the morning. Mike Tyson is the fighter that I remember dominating boxing when I was in my late teens. I remember getting up in the middle of the night to watch his fights on terrestrial television. So he means something to me. I worry a little bit for him at his age, but I'm aware that these are, I think, 2-minute rounds, and I believe that both fighters are wearing slightly heavier gloves to add some kind of protection. I'm a little bit surprised it's been licensed, but in some ways it ticks both boxes. It ticks a box for someone like me who remembers Mike Tyson. It ticks the box for younger people who are all about YouTube. And I think the thing that struck me about it, I was reading something actually in the Times today, was that Lennox Lewis, who of course once fought Mike Tyson, before he fought Lewis back in the day, threatened to eat his children. Well, apparently Lennox Lewis is taking those children to Dallas to watch this fight. And that just about sums it up.
Yeah, indeed. All grown up, no doubt, as well. Imagine if Tyson loses as well, 34 years on from being the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Let's switch our attention to rugby. Mark, it's in Ian's paper, but let's get brutal is the headline. We'll play box at their own game, vows George. England captain Jamie George has told his teammates to be ready for brutal physicality against the world champion Springboks at Twickenham today. It's nothing pretend about this, Mark, isn't it? How fearsome of a game faces England on home soil.
Well, yeah, the one team in world rugby that encourages and enjoys a physical confrontation more than us is the Springboks. That's what they do. They're just masters at it. They are a powerful, formidable team. Back-to-back world champions. England's recent run, is it 1 winning 6, and that was against Japan. I think this is probably the worst possible test at the worst possible time. But England have beaten the Springboks before. It is a traditional rivalry, but I do think that if you want to take on the Springboks on a physical level, then you're going to lose because they're better than anybody else. That's what they do. That's I think back in the day, I think me and Neil went to a Springboks test back in the World Cup in 2010, went to Newlands, I think, and you don't get a sense of how big rugby's in South Africa until you go to a game, and it's huge. It's like football over here. It's just it dominates and it seeps into the psyche of a nation, and much more than it does over here. So I think you're up against the bars, you're up against the physical size of them, you're up against everything with the Springboks. So it's going to be a tough game for England, I've got to say.
Yeah, it feels like they need a result, doesn't it, coming off those narrow losses to New Zealand and Australia to get the autumn series back on track for Steve Borthwick and company, albeit against the two-time or current back-to-back world champions. Let's stay with rugby, Ian, but go to the Telegraph in a club story here. Rebel League targets DuPont. This is the doubly money deals to be offered to 280 top players. Russell lined up as headline signing from Premiership. That's Finn Russell and Antoine DuPont. Ian, what's your take on this mooted rugby league? It's getting a few column inches, isn't it? Is it going to be something that disrupts the game, breaks up the game?
I tell you what, I've changed the way that I look at stories like this now. I used to look at stories like this and think, oh, that'll never happen. And then things like the Saudi Pro League took off, Live Golf took off. They were mooted and then they happened. And this sounds as though it could happen. For the simple reason that when money talks, sportsmen and women tend to listen. It's as simple as that. And this is about money. And the statistics that I've been reading about tell me that apparently they're offering a good group of players more than £1 million a season to play in this league. There's only 5 players in the world who currently earn that amount of money from rugby. It would also involve more money for less games, fewer games. Rugby is a brutal sport. Careers can be short. Damage can be lasting. So if you look at those boxes and you put ticks in those boxes, then you can see why this will start to turn heads of some of the top players in the game. So yeah, I can see that this could well have legs.
OK, Ian, stay with you then, maybe on a more optimistic note about sporting purity. Fast bowling's a short-lived game, isn't it? But let's look at cricket. Archer and Wood, England's 2 pacemen, to miss the IPL auction in England Test boost. They had a series against India and Australia. How important is this decision, do you think, for England cricket and for those men to maybe turn down big bucks?
I'm absolutely delighted about this. We've got just about a year, I think, until the Ashes starts down under. I've been thinking about it for a while, and this gives 2 of our strike bowlers the best possible chance to be there. Both those players are prone to injury. They both have devastating talent. They really do. On the game, both of them could win as an Ashes series in Australia without a doubt. Not on their own, but they could go a long way to helping us win over there. And so if they're taking themselves out of this franchise tournament in a view to keep themselves fresh and fit and focused on red ball cricket and the Ashes, then I'm all for it. I'm absolutely delighted to read about that.
OK, brilliant stuff. We've only got about 20 seconds talking of injury, Mark. Emma Raducanu, your usual Friday spot, back in the Billie Jean Cup with a win. Could this be the start of a good run?
Well, like I say, it's all about injuries and fitness. It's her first appearance for 2 months, and that's been the story of her career since winning the US Open. So let's hope it's a sign of things to come in 2025 and she stays fit and she can maybe win another major.